The agriculture was transformed into an industrial system, which means we went on a production spree. 4 million people died due to starvation in the eastern provinces of India. Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, who is known as the father of Green Revolution in India. As I told you in the first slide, we were trying to make agriculture from just a living to an industrial sector altogether. Good morning and welcome to the second session in Chapter 2, Unit 1, First Semester B.Ca, Pre-Reforms of Indian Economy, where we are going to speak about Green Revolution. Probably this is one of the biggest revolution that our country has seen in terms of bringing in prosperity to the farmers as well as to the citizens. Why I would say this revolution is very important, because this was the instrumental effort that was taken by the government in order to increase the agricultural output of our country. So when we talk about that word green revolution, the idea is just related to agricultural output, and it was during this period the agriculture was transformed into an industrial system, which means we went on a production spree. We increased the production to that level that probably we could have overtaken the world at any given instance. Now, this was the most important or a turnaround point for the agriculture, using the high yielding variety seeds, tractors, tillers, pesticides and other factors through which we had grown our output to an enormous level. We all know that in India, we are in terms of need for food, shelter and clothing, and of course food is the topmost priority. So we always needed a change. We needed some magic tool through which we can increase the production, and the answer to that was Green Revolution. Now, moving further, up to the year 1967, the government's main focus was on enlarging the agricultural area. However, rapidly growing population demanded drastic and fast action in order to enhance the yield. Government of India had an ideology in mind to make agriculture as a mainstay, as one of the most important occupation for the farmers and for the people in India. But over a period of time, we all started understanding that this is not going to remain as an easier option for the generations to come. On the other hand, people wanted some drastic change. People wanted some quick reaction, output to enhance very fast. So, and that was one of the reasons why they started coming back in terms of the green revolution factor. And that's how we came back and said that yes, green revolution is going to take a center stage altogether. And that's how we started coming up with this entire activity of how to make the system even more stronger. So the green revolution paved a path basically in terms of making us understand how we can take the yield, how we can take the output to the next level possible. Now, the Green Revolution history in India, if you look into it, the Bengal famine, which occurred in 1943, was the worst food crisis that was ever recorded, and this showed about 4 million people died due to starvation in the eastern provinces of India. It was a very sad state of affair to even think about it, that 40 lakh people died due to starvation. That reason behind it was a complete famine that took over the people, and they were completely helpless. Now, in 1947, when we got the independence, 4 years later, government's focus was on enlarging agriculture land and tried to improve it till 1967. So probably you can see that the 20 long years, we tried to just improve agriculture in different areas, in different walks altogether. But what was needed is that the population was growing at much more rapid pace when compared to that of the agricultural expansion. So in the year 1947, India was hardly about 40 crore population, but by 1967, we were almost outpacing 60 crore plus population. So what has happened here is that as the population started growing, the needs, the wants, and the supply for food also has to increase. But that was not happening at the same pace at the rate at which population was growing. So some point, people started asking to boost the yield of immediate into the growth of the food products, we needed a dynamic intervention. We needed a tool, we needed a system, a catalyst that could bring in that entire revolution, and that's where the Green Revolution came into picture. So the Green Revolution's immediate effect that could be felt by the people of India was the increase in agricultural output. So definitely Green Revolution was not just a myth. It was an action that was taken up by the government so that they could increase the yield, they could try to satisfy the food desire, the needs of the people. Going further, we start to understand who was behind the Green Revolution. Of course, the Green Revolution's father of the entire history was Dr. Norman Borlaug. But when it comes to India, it was actually done by Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, who is known as the father of Green Revolution in India. That's why I put it in brackets. Why? Because it was actually started by Dr. Norman Borlaug. And now the Indian government began the Green Revolution in 1965. His ideology was to transform the country's status from that of the world's leading agriculture producer altogether with the Green Revolution system. So primarily they started looking into the hybrid varieties of rice, wheat and other crops as far as possible so that India becomes a successful nation in terms of agricultural output. So this was definitely one of the best in terms of growth aspects that we are talking about, and this has definitely kept in pace with us in terms of growth, in terms of development altogether. So I would definitely recommend and mention on this factor that the growth of the agricultural patterns, the growth of this entire system was very much important, was very much necessary. Why? Because through this only we were able to go further and build the entire status. That's how we were able to satisfy the needs of the people that we were looking upon. Followed by the Green Revolution history. As we know, though it started in the year 1967, it went up to 1978, a whole good 12 years that we were talking about, where the contemporary agriculture was changed and we started getting into this high yielding variety seeds with tractors, irrigations, which transformed the entire system. And one of the states which I would definitely like to mention here is Haryana, Punjab and Uttar Pradesh, which were on the forefront runners of the Green Revolution. So definitely we all know that Punjab, being the agricultural birthhouse for India, being the agricultural hub for India, was definitely taken into the exercise, into the experiment, and we were able to get fantastic output, high yield altogether here. Uttar Pradesh and Haryana also followed that trend, and we were able to see significant success because of the Green Revolution coming into picture. Now this factor, though it was able to transform, but of course every good thing has also some bad thing inbuilt in it. So definitely even Green Revolution had the effects in terms. Let's look further what happened on the Green Revolution objectives. The first objective was that it had several specific characteristics. The first one was growth in size of agriculture area, double cropping system or practice of growing crops twice a year. Now due to the construction of dams and adoption of basic irrigation techniques, water has now obtained an extensive irrigation project using of high yield variety seeds which generated greater amount of output. So what we were actually trying to do is that bring a new practice, new system to the agriculture. We wanted the people of the farming community to understand, in order to increase the basic output that you are talking about, you need to make farming a continuous process, for which there is an extensive use of water, pesticides, fertilizers and other factors that are needed. Plus, you also need to have a continuous process in terms of the output. That means you need high yielding variety of seeds. So what did the Green Revolution basically emphasize is that it started giving them that push in the market. It started giving them that motivation that yes, you can do better than what we were doing in the previous year. So with that ideology in mind, Green Revolution actually started pushing agriculture to greater heights altogether. Followed by the 78-79, a tremendous increase in the crop production led to the grain output of 131 million tons, which is something huge, humongous, fantastic for a country like India and one of the largest agriculture producers in the world. So from a zero to a hero status, India was completely on a massive drive. It was just on a magical way, I would like to say, where India made a fantastic turnaround and they started becoming the world's largest agricultural producers. To the world, the answer that was given through Green Revolution was really fantastic. Why? Because we could provide high yielding variety wheat and rice, and this significantly increased stage by stage, which means to say that during those years of the early 80s, we were able to provide food for each and every citizen of our country. Now that's theoretically a statement that has been made, but still we were able to achieve a status where we could probably see that the food crisis could be solved to a very large extent, and probably we could go to the extent of not having any more food crisis coming into picture. And now what was happening is that because we were trying to become self-sufficient in the food grains, and occasionally we had enough stock in the central pool, in the central warehousing, where I would like to bring in the Food Corporation of India, FCI, which had also started stocking up of the grains, and additionally we had more grains availability, which means to say that end of crisis and beginning of great days for India from agriculture side. Now, with that, we also started coming into the factor called as the positive effects. Farmers were invested with their extra money back into the fields. They were given that incentive, they were given that push that they will be able to produce more, they will be able to grow more, and because of which they gained a significant traction here very, very clearly. They were able to see that the money that is being invested in farming was giving them absolutely fantastic returns. Why? Because the growth was good, the financial aspects were good, yield was good, and the output was on a continuous increase altogether. Followed by which the large-scale farming mechanization through the Green Revolution increased the demand for several equipments. Now, what we were trying to do, as I told you in the first slide, we were trying to make agriculture from just a living to an industrial sector altogether. At the first level, India thought that agriculture is just a backyard occupation where you just grow some rice, wheat, vegetables for your family to be satisfied. Why? Because we never knew how to really make agriculture a revolution. But once the revolution started setting in India, the demand for agricultural products as well as the related equipments also started going up. So this is a time when India started understanding that yes, you need to build modernized equipments, machineries that are needed to make agriculture even more sustainable. So this was a time when you started seeing companies like Mahindra and Mahindra, you started seeing companies like John Deere, or you started seeing companies like HMT tractors which started coming into India, and they started saying that yes, agriculture has got a future potential altogether. So that's why we came up with tractors, we came up with tillers, we came up with combines, we came up with so many machinery that could enhance the production, that could give the farmer an entirely a different version, a different set altogether. So chemically, and also when we start speaking about these fertilizers, herbicides and pesticides, we were no behind in that stage also. We were able to create a variety of agricultural output using this agro-based industries. Now, the other factor is that due to the fertilizer use and the multiple cropping, there was a noticeable increase, and the Green Revolution had actually taken a very big stride altogether, increasing the number of employees in that sector, making that agriculture produce even more going up, and everybody started looking the agriculture sector as a sunrise sector, as a comeback, as a turnaround, which could really bring in a lot of positive effects. Followed by which the negative impacts. What were the negative impacts? Now, if you start looking, though it had benefited many of the cereals, and the major factor is that the many other cereals were also excluded. So what happened? Major cash crops like sugarcane, cotton, juice, and the tea and other products were also largely unaffected by this green revolution. So we could not see that green revolution was actually trying to satisfy everybody in this course of action. Over a period of time, the green revolution answered only to certain sectors. The other sectors were untouched. The next thing is that only 5 crops were allowed in this. What were those 5 crops? Maize, wheat, rice, jowar, and bajra. These were the only 5 crops which got benefited because of green revolution. But what about those non-food grains? What about those other crops like which we were talking about, like jute or tea? These things did not get that benefit because why? The high-yielding seed varieties were not being developed in that particular year. So automatically, the other side, the output started coming down. So this is very, very important for us to understand here that when an output from a particular sector comes down and the other sector goes up, then it becomes a neutral stand altogether. We are not able to see a complete growth. And the growing regional and international economic imbalances were a result of green revolution and technological advances. Reason being is that only 40% of the cultivated area have been impacted, whereas 60% of the area still remains same. Again, if you talk about Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh and all those places were benefited, and Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, southern region were severely impacted. So one side, when you are talking about the positives, one side when you are talking about the states being on the top line, the other side we are seeing that they are negatively impacted. So this was creating a very big impact to the system altogether. Followed by, we are also talking about the usage of pesticides and synthetics, all that were used. They created a very big risk to the farmers. Why? Because typically the farming community was uneducated. They did not understand what is the consequences of this. So the crops also suffered because of the heavy usage of pesticides, and at some point of time this started becoming a concern among the farmers as well as the people, where they started seeing that there's a lot of side effects that has been affecting their health. Now today, the achievement is that farmers are enjoying a greater benefit. There was a growth in terms of the agricultural output thanks to the green revolution. Better seeds were able to be developed, and industries were also put in terms of growth when it comes to the agricultural sector. With this, I come to the end of today's session. I hope and believe that each and every factor that has been discussed in this particular presentation would be of a great help to you, both in terms of theory as well as in the practical walk of life. In the upcoming sector, we are going to talk about agriculture and the agriculture policies of India. So I would request all of you to stay tuned and focus on the different factors of the pre-reforms of economy. But until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session.